Well, Michael, what a charge with so little time, and time that's going to be disciplined at that. Well, Michael has very well set the stage here, so I'm going to pass over my introductory comments because I do think that time is of the essence. So we're as we all know, in an immigration regime now, which is inclusive, where Canada welcomes immigrants, and where in Vancouver, certainly, immigration has been dominantly from Asia since really the immigration reforms of the 1960s. So that is the context. And still, there are so many issues to cover here. So I'm going to be selective, but I hope, and Michael, I changed my talk on the basis of your directive, so we do pay attention. So immigration and integration is going to play a role, but it's going to be selective. And I want to take us back, those of you who are from this region, to a term that was coined in the 90s, the imagined entity of Vancouver. That will be familiar to some of you. A Vancouver society and landscape heavily impregnated by immigration and investment from East Asia. And this entity was in fact talked about in both the Hong Kong media as well as the North American media. I think the term was in part satirical, in some ways even racist. But like all satire, I think there was some insight in this exaggerated caricature. Because Vancouver had changed substantially as a place, with its society and landscapes internationalized in an Asian idiom. Old Chinatown, of course, still remains, but increasingly as a cultural relic, sustained above all by multicultural policy, and of limited relevance to middle-class migrants from East Asia, who are much more at home in suburban-themed malls. A far more representative landscape of a contemporary Asian modernity has emerged adjacent to Chinatown in the high-rise residential towers of Concord Pacific Place and nearby Cole Harbour, the largest and most visible of many development projects sired by investment capital from East Asia. While city planners beat back the developers' desire for Hong Kong-style densities, nonetheless, an internationally financed and marketed landscape has undoubtedly propelled a provincial city into a new age of global logics. Immigrants, of course, bring embodied cultures and values from other places, and these have entered into Vancouver's existing urban geography. Andrea Eng, a top real estate executive for Colliers International, first in Vancouver and then Hong Kong, saw herself as what she called a cultural translator of East Asian culture in Canada. She observed astutely that in Hong Kong, and I'm quoting her, the two ways to get ahead are through education and land. They study hard and they buy property. And I'm going to use this as a hook to talk about two particular themes of the transformation of this city, education and land. Education has proven an important component of Vancouver's globalization. Universities and school districts have played the globalization game with vigor, recognizing that there is a large market for Canadian education in East Asia, and that foreign student fees can add substantially to budgets depleted during the economic recessions and neoliberal policy adjustments of the past 30 years. The heavy emphasis upon educational attainment among overseas Chinese and Koreans has led to a substantial new business sector around town. After school, weekend, and holiday cramming, both enrichment and remedial programs. In addition, scores of full and part-time colleges of variable repute cater to language and full program foreign students. Many colleges are in or near downtown, and the thousands of international students they serve make a significant contribution to the downtown boutique, restaurant, and leisure market, not least on trendy Robson Street. This heavy investment in education in ethnic Chinese and Korean families has borne immediate, indeed spectacular results. Children in the 1.5 or second generation whose families speak a Chinese language at home are the top achievers in British Columbia schools. Nationally, analyses of the 2006 census show that the Chinese origin population, whether immigrant or non-immigrant, widely outperforms the native white population by an astonishing range of as much as 30% when it comes to university attendance. So here, I think, is one substantial area where the landscape, in the broadest sense, has changed. The second is the more immediate sense of a putative Vancouver in the built environment itself. And here the pace and scale of change has been extraordinary. Among the more than 250,000 ethnic Chinese immigrants who landed in Vancouver between 1986 and 2011 was an overdetermined attention to the sale of property and the appreciation of land value through redevelopment. In Hong Kong, what one author has called Hong Kong's property development regime, wealth assembled by middle-class residents in the final years of colonial government was frequently tied to the highly orchestrated market in land, where state-mandated scarcity led to a housing bubble that was sustained until 1997. Li Ka-shing's portfolio expansion to Vancouver on the Expo site in 1988 not only placed Vancouver on the investment map, but also helped to overdetermine property as a pressing priority for those who discovered the city as a place to live and or invest. The idea of land was embodied in the cultural repertoire of migrants and investors who came to Vancouver, creating an extraordinary property market after 1986. A significant element of the social construction of Vancouver was the preeminence of housing inflation and property deals in the popular imagination, together with their mood swings of exhilaration and anxiety. The wealth accompanying these capital flows was really quite astonishing. In the 10 years from 1988 to 1997, just business immigrants alone had disposable income, that is, business immigrants who landed in Vancouver, had disposable funds of $35 to $40 billion. And of course, since that period, mainland investors have, I'm sure, added equal sums. And I think what this has done is make us think more theoretically as well as empirically on the role of out-of-region and indeed out-of-country capital in the land markets of global cities, not least because the geographical switching of international investors can so easily produce exaggerated boom-bust cycles in even mature urban economies. So the old idea that mainly local and regional processes and actors drive the property market must be set aside in global cities. How can they be the drivers when in real terms Vancouver family incomes rose only 1.6% in the period from 1986 to 2005, while real housing prices rose 134%. There have to be other drivers than local capital here. So in these two respects, education and land, among others, the fusion of East and West into the cultural formation of Vancouver has taken place after 1986. I think this outcome demonstrates that Canada's multicultural model need not produce assimilation with the disappearance of immigrant difference, but rather a process of integration where both newcomer and host societies are reconfigured. Ethnic Chinese migrants and capital did not, of course, encounter empty space, but a landscape and society cultured by the impress of a century of European settlement upon unceded Aboriginal land. The longer-term outcome, I think, has been the construction of a hybrid city, Vancouver's newfound role and identity as geographical gateway to and from Asia Pacific.